After weeks of protests against illegal immigrants in the UK, Keir Starmer looks to have finally started listening to his people after repeated protests outside migrant hotels following the arrest of a resident of the hotel.
So the UK, an island, has a massive problem with illegal immigrants sailing the seven seas and landing right on their shores, which the modern progressive government there claims it's powerless to stop. Probably because this isn't a hypothetical German invasion force, nor is the year 1940, revealing the real reason local residents who wonder why their island isn't impervious to illegal immigration are so upset. And as you're about to see, the whole situation here just got worse.
We don't want
In Britain, there have been an unprecedented number of rallies, protests, marches, and so on against immigration. Now, this is a massive backlash against years, really, and it's still going on, where people are silenced in Britain if they raise any questions about immigration.
These migrants had been camping a few hundred metres from the beach near Calais. They were ready to board small boats headed for the United Kingdom when French police found their camp and ordered them to pack up and leave.
We want to continue living freely. They shouldn't stop us, but instead make it easier for us to get to the UK.
Protesters have marched on a suspected migrant hotel in Essex after an asylum seeker was charged with assault. Protesters were heard chanting, "Save our kids."
It's being called the one in, one out plan. Under the deal, migrants apprehended in the UK after crossing the Channel can be returned to France. In exchange, Britain will accept an equal number of asylum seekers currently on French soil.
So this is crazy. Britain is an island, and an island has to work really hard to have an illegal immigration problem. Because what nobody's talking about is this is the same country that stopped a proposed German invasion from coming across the English Channel, where the migrants come across 85 years ago. And if an island wants to have zero illegal immigrants, it can. Just ask Japan, which, like the UK, is an island with a modern standard of living and very nice people living there, yet doesn't have constant armadas of small boats from the far corners of the earth landing on its shores every single day. Nor does it welcome people off those boats, walk them past their own poor and needy, only to check them into hotels that locals are expected to pay for with a smile. And what this reveals is the entire migration crisis in the UK is entirely self-inflicted. And if what you're about to see shocks you, remember, America was headed in this direction less than 1 year ago. And the shocking thing is that just like in the US, British state-run media is totally in the tank for mass migration, labeling anyone who picks up their country's flag as some sort of bigot, even if locals might have valid concerns for asking questions about why their island now has a wide open border. And that brings us to the real reason why this whole immigration situation in the UK is so out of control and so wildly unpopular at the exact same time. The government has completely let down its guard, opened the border, and the more people inquire about this, the more they seem to be punished for it.
Place in particular, perhaps they are, but
we've had free speech for a very, very long time here, so we're very proud of that.
So he's right. They've had free speech for a long time in the UK, but had is the past tense. And free speech is gone now, vanished, poof. And right now in the UK, if you say the wrong thing, you might wind up in the slammer, which has locals upset because they say that actually doing the wrong thing physically doesn't come with the same sort of consequences as it should, which is totally backwards. Plus, as you're about to see, the benefits package being offered to illegal immigrants, well, it looks like that also might be an element of this crisis that has caused it to exist in the first place.
Migrants arriving on small boats are being offered cut-price dinghy days out, funded by British taxpayers. Martial arts sessions, massages, gym classes, and even £1 footy tickets are among perks offered to asylum seekers by local councils across the country, which are uncovered today in a study investigation. Among the worst offenders is the Labour-run Rotherham Council, which gives asylum seekers access to the Rother card, aimed at helping low-earning families with their bills. More than 500 asylum seekers live in taxpayer-funded accommodation in the market town, and those with a Rother card can take to the Rother Valley Country Park's free lakes in a canoe, kayak or a dinghy. They get 30% off the cost of a 90-minute boat hire, reducing the price from £20.70 to just £14.80. The park also offers discounted water sports for migrants, including windsurfing.
This sounds like a 5-star resort by the time you get done listing all that stuff. That's absolutely crazy. And how does a country avoid a mass migration crisis when it says that everybody who shows up gets all that stuff? How do you do that? I don't think you can. And the same thing happened in America, where we had a very similar system, checking illegal immigrants into free luxury hotel rooms in the center of Midtown Manhattan, New York City, places where average families could never afford to stay. Yet those who could scrape together money or incur a massive debt to a Mexican cartel got to stay there. Meanwhile, the biggest scam in illegal immigration is we were told, oh, these people, they just want to have a new life. And of course, everyone wants that. Therefore, this shouldn't be a problem. But the thing is, the life people who enter the country illegally, the life that they receive, which is free, isn't what actual Americans get. They don't get the free life in the hotel or in the UK, the benefits vacation package with the windsurfing. No, they don't get that life.
These migrants had been camping a few hundred meters from the beach near Calais. They were ready to board small boats headed for the United Kingdom when French police
looks exactly
found their
like
camp
the US southern
and ordered
border.
them to pack up and leave.
We want to continue living freely. They shouldn't stop us, but instead make it easier for us to get to the UK.
That's what everyone wants.
The police called a local charity to bring food and water. The migrants ask us not to film their faces up close. Some tell us they don't want their families to see the conditions they're living in.
So this is happening in France, right across the water. And this is where people launch these little boats and make their crossing. And what's so crazy about that is this is not even a land crossing. And these individuals, they've already traveled through most of Europe and decided, we don't want to stay at any of those places. We want to go all the way to the shores of France and then launch ourselves across the English Channel. Something which they also pay a criminal underworld to help them accomplish, just like those entering America illegally have to do. But here's the thing. Britain isn't America. It's an island. Islands have a natural border wall, which someone can only cross if you deliberately let them. Britain's never been invaded by a hostile military power before, yet somehow it's got a problem stopping inflatable boats from coming over. Can't do anything about it. But again, the reason why this is happening is very obvious. The boats going to England are only going in one direction. You don't have any boats going the other way, which means there must be something there that people are willing to do just about anything to get their hands on. And here we have a protest.
Behind me! Behind!
People are upset. Whoa. So the life that people get for showing up in Britain illegally is not the life that any of these protesters have access to, because they've got to pay their own bills. They don't get the free windsurfing, but everybody who shows up gets that. Now, I don't think there's any excuse for violence. I don't think it's right, but you can't blame people for feeling like things are unfair. And how could you not expect that if you're going to run your country in a way that is unfair to its own people in some capacity, how could you not expect that to spiral out of control at some point? That's what we're watching here. It's very sad. It's terrible. And now the government of England has some new plan where they're going to quote unquote secure their border, but it basically involves an immigrant swap, so to speak, which means every time a boat crosses the English Channel and lands, whoever's on that boat gets sent back, but an equal number of people who are in France and might be waiting in the forest for their chance to cross and haven't done so yet get to come over instead. So this isn't really a solution. It's like a revolving door type of migration program. It's not going to work.
In Britain this weekend, as we speak, there have been an unprecedented number of rallies, protests, marches and so on against immigration. Now, this is a massive backlash against years, really, where, and it's still going on, where people are silenced in Britain if they raise any questions about immigration. As I said before, they're immediately called a racist. And the police will knock on their door in the middle of the night because they said something on social media posts that they were uncomfortable about the number of illegal immigrants in the local hostel, and so on and so forth. Well, now the people of Britain seem to have had enough. There have been unprecedented number of protests across the country. Of course, you won't see this on most of the mainstream news. But here's one woman speaking up. Have a listen.
We are not far right. We are the mothers of Nuneaton, the mothers of England. We will no longer be silenced.
So here's where the perceived unfairness goes even further. If you speak out against something that you think might be a bad idea in general, you're going to be punished for it in a way that is new in the United Kingdom. People are actually getting in trouble for what they write on the internet, whereas criminals roam the streets actually doing things and get off scot-free with light sentences. That's another backwards, unfair system that's got people really upset as well. And this is actually independent from the migration issue, but this is where we see it a lot because people that have an outspoken opinion on migration, these laws are being used against them to silence them and in some cases to jail. On top of that, the local news, they are totally in the tank for mass migration and they label everyone opposing it immediately as some kind of far-end extremist.
Of their complacency and laziness with regard to border control.
We don't want it.
See?
Migration is the far right's calling card and agitating outside asylum hotels their preferred current MO.
We don't want them here.
Research by Hope Not Hate claims that a combination of British fascist and neo-Nazi groups were behind ugly scenes in Epping last week by hijacking a relatively peaceful local protest after an asylum seeker staying at a local hotel was charged with...
Right, so if you have concerns that your island somehow has a new immigration problem and you think something should be done about it, the news is going to come out and say that you're aligned with extremists. And what's crazy is every time we see a protest like this, which is pro-open borders, and that protest goes wildly out of control, we're always told how peaceful it is. We're never told that those protests have been infiltrated. Oh no, it's only the protests in opposition. Meanwhile, all illegal immigration does is it empowers a criminal underworld which exists wherever you have this type of crisis.
We meet Iraqis, Egyptians, Afghans, Syrians and Kuwaitis. Many have travelled along smugglers' routes from Turkey, like this woman who arrived in France 6 weeks ago.
The journey here was very difficult. I went to Turkey, I stayed there for a few days, then I travelled in a truck illegally. After 3 days I arrived in France. Since then I've been trying to cross to the UK.
These people have been breaking the law through every country they go through.
No one seems to know where they're going. The police escort them to make sure they don't set up camp again nearby.
Yeah, this is the solution.
Trying to disrupt the plans laid by migrants and their smugglers to cross the channel to...
Okay, so this is the one-in, one-out deal solution right here. Basically, the police are keeping an eye on these folks. If they try to cross, then they're not going to be eligible for a quote-unquote prisoner swap type arrangement when a boat lands and all those people get arrested. And to be honest with you, it looks like France is trying as hard to stop illegal migration to the UK as Mexico is trying to stop it to America. After all, if you're France, it's very easy to just sit back and say, hey, we got a hands-off approach to this because after all, these people are just passing through. A lot of them don't want to stay in France. If they did, it might be a totally different story. But again, people are going to a place where a specific thing is available to them. They've said they just want to live free. They just want to get to the UK. There's a reason for that, a giant reason of benefits over there that they don't get in any of the countries they illegally travel through with smugglers on their way to the shores of France.
But they're not deterred.
And why don't you stay in France?
France? France is like this.
No, you don't want to stay in France? It looks lovely. Why not? What's wrong with this? Nice beaches,
the UK
nice grass.
is paying France over 500 million euros
It's all about money.
to prevent small boats from crossing the channel. But the number of successful crossings is 42% higher than at the same time last year.
So the UK pays France to stop these boats from coming over. And now the crossings are even higher. Once you start paying for something, a lot of times the problem gets worse. And the crazy thing is, The UK could take that money and they could put it into their own border security, but then they've got to be the bad guy. They've got to be the ones that step in and say, hey, we're going to close our border. And apparently people running that country are unsure that they actually want to do that. And there's another angle to all of this too. Look at this report. Apparently most Americans do not make enough to afford the basic costs of living in this country. Yet if you have a society like this or the UK and you allow people who come here illegally to get the basic costs of living here covered for them, you got to pay your own way. And you can't blame people for going to a place where that is not required of them. Why? There's free money. Who's not going to go get it? That's what I think anyways. What do you think? Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.